I still remember that night like it was carved into my soul. The soft hum of jazz music, the clinking of wine glasses, and the smell of expensive perfume filled the air at the Grand Regency Hotel ballroom. It was the annual company party, the event my husband Daniel looked forward to every year. He was the golden boy of Harrison and Company, the man everyone wanted to impress. And me? I was the wife who always stood quietly by his side, smiling on cue. That night, I had spent hours getting ready, a black satin gown that shimmered under the chandelier lights, my hair pinned in soft waves, and a touch of red lipstick, Daniel's supposed favorite. I wanted to look perfect for him, but perfection meant nothing to a man whose heart had already left home. "Ah, look who finally decided to show up," Daniel said coldly as I joined him at the party. His arm was already around a woman I had never seen before, tall, glamorous, with a smirk that could slice through glass. She was wearing a dress that barely existed, her hand resting possessively on his chest. "Darling, you're late," he added, his tone dripping with disdain. "I had to pick up the cake you asked for," I replied softly, trying to ignore the curious glances from his colleagues. "You said you wanted it to match the company's theme." He scoffed. "Always an excuse, isn't it, Evelyn?" The woman beside him chuckled. "Maybe she got lost on the way here," she said mockingly. A few people around laughed, quietly, uncomfortably, but no one dared to stop Daniel. He was, after all, their boss. I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation, but I swallowed it down, forcing a smile. I'd learned to stay calm. Daniel had been distant, cruel even for months, but this was new. Public humiliation was his latest sport. As the night went on, Daniel got drunker. He laughed loudly with his friends, danced with his mistress, Vanessa, I later learned, and ignored me completely. I sat at our table, pretending to scroll through my phone, pretending I didn't care. But inside, something in me was breaking. Then it happened. Daniel stumbled toward me, glass in hand, reeking of whiskey. "Come on, Evelyn," he slurred. "Don't sit there looking like a ghost. Dance for once in your life." "I'm fine, Daniel," I said quietly. "You've had too much to drink." His smile turned sharp. "Too much to drink? You're not my mother." I said dance. He grabbed my arm, hard enough that I gasped, and before I could pull away, he shoved me back, sending me crashing into the chair behind me. The room went silent. I heard gasps, whispers. Someone laughed nervously. Vanessa smirked, sipping her champagne as if watching a show. "Daniel," I cried, standing up, my voice trembling. "You're hurting me." He sneered. "Oh, please. You've been hurting me for years. Always nagging, always useless. Maybe if you were half the woman Vanessa is, I wouldn't need a reason to look elsewhere." And then, to my utter disbelief, he kicked the chair beside me, the motion deliberate, his shoe brushing against my leg in warning. It wasn't a full-blown hit, but it was enough to make his point. Enough to humiliate me in front of everyone. I heard someone whisper, "Did he just?" Another muttered, "Poor thing." But no one stepped in. Not a single one. I felt something in me snap. For years, I had endured his cruelty, the verbal abuse, the coldness, the late nights, the lies. But this was public. And something about being humiliated in front of strangers and his mistress lit a fire in me that I didn't know I had. I straightened my gown, looked Daniel dead in the eye, and smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the kind that made people nervous. "You're right, Daniel," I said calmly, my voice steady. "I've been quiet for too long." He chuckled mockingly. "Oh, really? And what are you gonna do, sweetheart?" I leaned closer, whispering just loud enough for the people around us to hear. "You'll find out very soon. Enjoy your party. It's your last one as the king of Harrison and Company." His laughter faltered. "What's that supposed to mean?" I simply turned, picked up my purse, and walked out, every step deliberate, every click of my heels echoing in the stunned silence of the ballroom. What Daniel didn't know was that while he was busy parading his mistress around like a trophy, I had already made my move weeks ago. He thought he had the power. But the truth, the real power was about to change hands. And when it did, He'd be the one begging for mercy. As the elevator doors closed behind me that night, my hands trembled, not from fear, but from the adrenaline coursing through my veins. My humiliation had turned into something far more powerful: resolve. For years, I had lived in Daniel's shadow. I was an obedient wife, the one who attended his events, smiled for his friends, and stayed silent while he played the perfect husband in public. But what no one knew, not even Daniel, was that I wasn't as naive or helpless as he believed. He thought I spent my days at home, wasting away in boredom. What he didn't know was that I had been quietly building something of my own. 3 years earlier, when Daniel started coming home late and making excuses about late meetings, I stopped waiting for him. Instead, I began working on the side as a financial consultant, remotely managing small businesses that couldn't afford big corporate firms. It started small: a bakery, a car dealership, a boutique. But within 2 years, those businesses had grown under my care. Word spread. I gained more clients. Eventually, I created my own small financial advisory agency, Evelyn and Company, registered discreetly under a friend's name. And guess who one of my new clients turned out to be? Harrison and Company, Daniel's own company. They had no idea I was his wife because my professional name was Evelyn Hart, my maiden name. Over time, I noticed discrepancies in their books: missing funds, inflated invoices, shady transfers. And the person behind it all? Daniel himself. He had been embezzling company funds, using his mistress as a front through fake consulting contracts and shell companies. I didn't say a word. I quietly gathered everything: emails, invoices, signed authorizations, and confidential records. By the time that company party happened, I already had a complete dossier of Daniel's crime sitting in a password-protected drive, ready to send the board of directors, the press, and the authorities, if I chose to. That night, when I walked out of the ballroom, I didn't go home. I went straight to the office of Mr. Harrison, the company's founder and Daniel's boss. He was an old man, sharp and just. He had always liked me, often telling Daniel, "Evelyn's got more class and brains than half the men in this building." When I arrived, the security guard looked shocked. "Mrs. Carter? It's late." "I know," I said calmly, "but Mr. Harrison is expecting me." He wasn't yet, but he soon would be. I knocked on his office door. The lights were still on. He often stayed late. When he saw me, his eyes softened. "Evelyn, my dear, it's been too long. What brings you here at this hour?" "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important," I replied, placing a brown envelope on his desk. He looked at it, then at me. "What's this?" "Evidence," I said simply, "of fraud, embezzlement, and betrayal from a man you trust the most." He frowned, adjusting his glasses. "You don't mean—" "I do," I interrupted quietly. "Daniel." He sat back, visibly shaken. "My God, are you certain?" I met his gaze. "I have every document to prove it. He's been siphoning money from company accounts into offshore holdings, using fake contracts through a woman named Vanessa Reed. She's his mistress." Mr. Harrison's expression hardened. I had my suspicions about that woman. Daniel vouched for her when she came in as a consultant. I never imagined. He opened the envelope and scanned the files. The silence in the room was heavy, until he looked up again. "What do you want me to do with this?" he asked quietly. I smiled faintly. "Nothing. Not yet. I just wanted you to know before things escalate. I'll let you decide how you want to handle it when the time comes." He nodded slowly. "Evelyn, are you sure about this? You'll destroy him." I met his eyes and said, with a calmness that even surprised me, "He already destroyed me. I'm just returning the favor with precision." By the time I left Mr. Harrison's office, it was almost 2 a.m. The city lights reflected on the glass buildings, glimmering like quiet witnesses. As I got into my car, my phone buzzed, dozens of missed calls and messages from Daniel. "Daniel, where are you? Daniel, get back here right now. Daniel, you embarrassed me tonight. Daniel, don't make me come find you." I stared at the screen, then typed a single reply: "You'll wish I stayed quiet," and press send. I drove home that night not as the broken wife who had been kicked in front of a crowd, but as the woman who held the key to everything Daniel was about to lose. He didn't know it yet, but his downfall had already begun. Because the next morning, the board meeting at Harrison and Company would change his life forever. And I'd be sitting right there, watching every second of it. The next morning, the sun rose beautifully, golden rays spilling across my bedroom window. But for me, it wasn't just another morning. It was Judgment Day. Daniel was still asleep when I left the house. He had stumbled in sometime around 4 a.m., reeking of alcohol and arrogance. The sight of him, snoring so carelessly after everything he'd done, almost made me laugh. He had no idea that within a few hours his empire, his pride, would crumble at his feet. I didn't bother waking him. I simply left a note on the kitchen counter. You told me I wasn't half the woman Vanessa was. Let's see how much a man you are when she's gone too. Then I picked up my bag, put on my black power suit, and headed straight to Harrison and Company. Headquarters. When I arrived, the air in the lobby was tense. Word had already spread that an emergency board meeting had been called, one requested personally by Mr. Harrison himself. That alone was enough to send whispers flying through corridors. As I stepped into the elevator, a few employees glanced at me curiously. To them, I was still Mrs. Carter, the quiet wife who occasionally visited. But by noon, they'd see me in a completely different light. When the elevator doors opened onto the 15th floor, I could already hear Daniel's voice booming from the conference room. I don't understand why this meeting couldn't wait until Monday, he was saying, his tone impatient. I have clients flying tomorrow. Then he stopped. His eyes widened when he saw me walking in confident, composed, with a thin folder tucked neatly under my arm. What the hell are you doing here? He hissed under his breath, stepping closer. I'm here as a representative. I said smoothly. Representative? Of who? Before I could answer, Mr. Harrison's voice cut through the tension. Of me, Daniel. Daniel turned, visibly startled. You what? Mr. Harrison gestured for me to sit beside him. Evelyn has been working with our financial department for several months now, under her maiden name. She'd been auditing our internal accounts. Daniel froze. Auditing our accounts? Yes, Mr. Harrison said sharply. And what she found is deeply troubling. The room fell silent. Every executive in that room, men and women Daniel had laughed and drank with, now stared at him as Mr. Harrison opened the folder and began reading out loud. Unauthorized transfers totaling $3.2 million. Multiple payments to a shell company listed under Vanessa Reed Consulting. Forged expense reports, falsified signatures. Each line was a bullet, and Daniel's composure began to crack with every word. That's ridiculous, he barked, his voice trembling. This is some kind of mistake. It's no mistake, I interrupted softly. You signed off on every single transaction. All eyes turned to me. I reached into my folder and slid several printed emails across the table. His digital signature, timestamps, everything. Daniel's face went pale. I don't know how you got these. You sent them from your office, I said calmly, to Vanessa's private email. I traced the IP addresses myself. Mr. Harrison leaned back in his chair. I trusted you, Daniel. You were like a son to me. And this is how you repay me. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in months. Evelyn, you did this? I met his gaze, unwavering. No, Daniel, you did this. I just exposed it. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Mr. Harrison spoke. Effective immediately, Daniel Carter. You are suspended from all duties pending a full investigation. Legal action will follow after the audit's completion. Daniel's jaw clenched. You can't do this to me. I just did, Mr. Harrison said coldly. Security stepped forward. 2 uniformed guards entered the room. Daniel turned back to me, eyes wild with fury. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching me lose everything. I stood up, gathering my papers. No, I said quietly. I'm just watching you face what you've earned. He took a step toward me, fists tightening, but Mr. Harrison's voice boomed. Daniel, enough. He froze. The guard stood ready. And I simply walked past him, my heels clicking across the marble floor, every step echoing with the satisfaction of poetic justice. In the hallway, I could still hear his voice shouting behind the glass doors. "Evelyn, you can't do this. You're my wife." I stopped, turned slightly, and said over my shoulder, "You should have remembered that before you humiliated me in front of everyone." Then I left, leaving him surrounded by the mess he created. That afternoon, the news broke within the company. CEO under investigation for fraud and misconduct. Vanessa's contract was terminated instantly. Her name was on every shady document, and when she realized Daniel couldn't protect her anymore, she vanished, leaving him to drown alone. By evening, Daniel was trending on business news sites for all the wrong reasons. His so-called friends stopped answering his calls. His accounts were frozen. His car was repossessed. And me? I went home, made myself a cup of tea, and for the first time in years, smiled. But the war wasn't over, because Daniel wasn't the kind of man to go down quietly. And the next move he made would test me in ways I never expected. The fall of a powerful man is never quiet. It's loud, chaotic, and often desperate. By the next morning, Daniel's downfall had already become the company's biggest scandal in a decade. Emails were flying. Reporters were calling, and his friends, the same men who had laughed at him at the party, were now avoiding his name like a disease. Harrison and Company, S. Bohr, had released an internal statement confirming a temporary suspension due. When I woke up that morning, I expected silence, maybe a sense of peace, TO financial discrepancies. Instead, I woke to the sound of furious banging on my front door. "Evelyn, open this damn door." His voice, hoarse, angry, desperate. I didn't move immediately. I just sat there in bed, sipping my coffee, letting him shout until his throat burned. Then, when I finally opened the door, I didn't flinch. Daniel stood there, his once polished look now disheveled. His tie hung loose, his eyes bloodshot, his jaw twitching. "You!" he growled, stepping inside without permission. "You did this to me. I warned you." I said coolly, "You just didn't listen." He slammed the door shut. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The board thinks I'm a criminal. My accounts are frozen. Vanessa left the country. You are a criminal." I cut in, calm but sharp. "And if you think yelling at me will undo it, you're as foolish as I thought." He clenched his fists. "You think you've won? You ruined my reputation, but I'll fix it. I'll tell everyone you forged those documents, that you hacked into system. I'll sue you for defamation. You'll lose everything." I tilted my head slightly, smiling. "That's funny, because I recorded every conversation, every transfer, every meeting. I even have the footage from your office's security system, where you handed Vanessa those consulting files. Should I forward them to the police before you finish your coffee?" His face froze. For a second, all the rage drained from him, replaced by panic. You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I dare," I said softly. "And I'd enjoy it." He stumbled back, rubbing his temples, pacing the room like a trapped animal. "I can fix this," he muttered to himself. "I can fix this." Then, suddenly, he turned to me with a desperate gleam in his eyes. "Evelyn, listen, we can work something out. You don't have to go through with this. Tell Harrison it was a misunderstanding. I'll step down quietly. We can leave the country. Start over. I'll give you anything you want." I almost laughed. "Anything I want? Daniel, all I ever wanted was respect. You kicked me in front of your mistress. You humiliated me. You made me feel like I was nothing. And now that your empire is crumbling, now you remember I exist?" He flinched. "I made a mistake. I was drunk." "No," I interrupted, stepping closer. "You were cruel and sober. You knew exactly what you were doing." He stared at me, chest heaving, trying to find words, but there were none left to save him. Finally, his voice broke. "You're going to destroy me." "I'm not going to," I said quietly. "You already did that yourself. I'm just making sure the world sees the truth." For a moment, he stood there in silence. Then, unexpectedly, he sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "Evelyn," Please, he whispered. I've lost everything. The house, the company, my reputation. I'm begging you. And for the first time in years, I saw him as he truly was. Not the confident CEO everyone admired. Not the charming man I once fell in love with, but a coward. A man who destroyed himself and blamed everyone else. I warned you that night, Daniel, I said softly. You told me I wasn't half the woman Vanessa was. But tell me now, where's Vanessa? He looked up slowly, eyes hollow. Gone. Exactly. I walked toward the door and opened it. Leave, Daniel. You have no power here anymore. He didn't move. Evelyn, please. I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem, I said coldly. You didn't care where I'd go when you threw me out of your life in front of everyone. Now it's your turn to figure out. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, with trembling hands, he stood and walked past me. As he reached the doorway, he turned back. I'll make this right, he said, his voice shaking. You'll see. I smiled faintly. The only right thing left for you to do is confess. But I know you won't. Then I closed the door in his face. That night, as I sat in my living room, I received an email from Mr. Harrison. Subject, formal update. Evelyn, the board has officially voted to remove Daniel as CEO. You've been instrumental in helping us uncover the truth. I'd like to offer you a position on the company's internal audit committee, officially, under your own name this time. Congratulations, James Harrison. I stared at the email for a long moment, then smiled. I had gone from being the invisible wife to the woman who helped clean up one of the biggest corporate frauds in the company's history. Daniel had no idea yet, but my rise was only just beginning. But the storm wasn't over, because desperate men make dangerous decisions. And soon, Daniel's next move would go far beyond business, and straight into something much darker. For a few blissful days, it felt as though peace had finally returned to my life. The chaos surrounding Daniel's downfall slowly began to settle. The media frenzy died down. Harrison and company began repairing its reputation. And me, I started breathing again. I accepted Mr. Harrison's offer to join the audit committee under my real name. It felt poetic. The same company Daniel once ruled was now paying me to rebuild what he'd broken. But I should have known it wouldn't end so easily. Men like Daniel don't lose gracefully. They spiral. They destroy everything around them on the way down. And that destruction came knocking one night. It was late, around 11:45 p.m. The neighborhood was quiet, the streetlights glowing dimly outside. I was curled up on the couch, reviewing some documents for the next board session. Then I heard it, a faint tapping at the window. At first, I thought it was just the wind or maybe a stray branch brushing against the glass. But then it came again, louder, deliberate. I froze. My pulse quickened. I turned off the lamp beside me and listened. Silence. And then a knock at the front door. 3 heavy knocks. Slow, measured. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm. Carefully, I walked to the door and peeked through the peephole. My heart nearly stopped. It was Daniel. He looked nothing like the man I once knew. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, and his face was gaunt, the face of someone who hadn't slept in days. Evelyn, he called softly. I just want to talk. I didn't answer. He sighed, pressing his hand against the door. Please, I'm not here to fight. I need to explain. I hesitated, every instinct screaming at me not to open that door. But curiosity, or maybe closure, got the better of me. I unlatched the chain lock halfway and opened it just enough to meet his eyes. You shouldn't be here, Daniel. He gave a sad, broken smile. I had to see you. They froze everything. The media's destroying me. My own family won't pick up my calls. I crossed my arms. Maybe that's the universe finally giving you what you gave others. He winced. I deserve that. I do. But I can't go on like this. I need your help. I raised an eyebrow. My help? Yes, he said, voice trembling. I need you to talk to Harrison. Tell him I didn't mean for things to get this bad. I just made bad decisions. If they'd give me a chance to explain. I laughed. A bitter, humorless sound. You embezzled millions, Daniel. You lied. You cheated. You humiliated me in front of the whole company. Explain that to Harrison. He stepped closer to the doorway. Evelyn, please. I've lost everything. I even thought about ending it all. Something inside me softened for a split second. A reflex, maybe, from the years I spent loving him. But before I could respond, I saw it. A flicker in his eyes. A coldness. And I realized he wasn't here for forgiveness. He was here for control. I know what you're doing, I said quietly. You think if I pity you, I'll undo everything. But that woman, the one you kicked at the party, she doesn't exist anymore. His jaw tightened. You think you're untouchable now, don't you? Because you've got Harrison on your side? Because you embarrassed me in front of the world? I didn't embarrass you, Daniel. I said evenly, you embarrassed yourself. His calm facade cracked. You ruined my life, he shouted, slamming his hand against the door so hard it rattled. I jumped back instinctively. Daniel, stop. Do you have any idea what it feels like to lose everything because of you? My fear turned to anger. Because of me? You're blaming me for your crimes. He laughed bitterly. You always thought you were smarter than me. Always judging. Always quiet. But scheming behind my back. You think you've won. Evelyn, this isn't over. And then he pulled something from his jacket pocket. A small flash drive. I have something, he said darkly. Something that can make everyone see you're not the saint they think you are. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? Oh, you'll find out soon enough, he smirked. Let's just say you're not the only one who knows how to play dirty. He tucked the drive back into his pocket and turned toward the door. You wanted war, Evelyn? You've got it. And with that, he walked away into the night, leaving me trembling in the doorway. When the door finally clicked shut, I locked every bolt and pressed my back against it, breathing hard. Something deep inside me knew. Whatever was on that flash drive was going to change everything. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Unknown, check your email. Thought you'd like to see what your husband's been spreading around. I opened my inbox, and what I saw made my stomach twist. It was a screenshot of company memo, fake but convincing, claiming that I had falsified documents to frame Daniel. Attached were several evidence files, also forged. He was trying to turn the tables. And worse, the email had already been forwarded to Mr. Harrison. Daniel wasn't done. He was fighting back, dirty, desperate, and dangerous. But he had underestimated one thing. I didn't just fight back with anger. I fought back with strategy. And this time, I wasn't gonna expose him quietly. This time, the whole world would see exactly who he truly was. When I read that forged memo, a cold calm came over me. I didn't panic, not this time. Daniel thought he could scare me with lies. But what he didn't realize was that fear had left me the night he kicked me in front of his mistress. Now, all I felt was focus. I spent the next few hours studying the files Daniel had faked. They were good, convincing enough to fool someone who didn't know better. Fake emails showing me requesting the company audit. Altered financial spreadsheets, making it look like I manipulated data. He had clearly spent nights working on this. But there was one thing he forgot: the digital footprints. He'd used his own computer, his own IP address, his own timestamps. The fool didn't realize that every forged document leaves a trail, and I was going to make sure everyone saw it. The next morning, I walked into the Harrison and Company boardroom, the same one where Daniel had once sat proudly at the head of the table. Now, his name had been stripped from the door. The directors were already murmuring among themselves, holding printed copies of the email Daniel had sent out anonymously. Mr. Harrison looked up as I entered. Evelyn, I'm sorry you have to deal with this. I gave a small smile. It's fine, sir. Let's clear this up once and for all. I connected my laptop to projector, and the screen lit up with a list of digital records. This, I began calmly, is what happens when someone tries to fabricate data without understanding how digital forensics works. I showed them the metadata from the fake files, all created on Daniel's personal device, under his username, using his login credentials. Then I pulled up a short screen recording, Daniel's own security footage from his home office, time-stamped a week ago, showing him editing the forged documents on his laptop. A gasp rippled through the room. Mr. Harrison leaned forward, his jaw tightening. He actually filmed himself doing it? I nodded. He thought deleting the footage from his device would erase it. But what he didn't realize is that his cloud account automatically backed up everything. I retrieved it this morning. I paused, letting the silence sink in. Gentlemen, Daniel Carter didn't just commit fraud once. He's now attempted to falsify evidence in an active investigation. The room went dead silent. Mr. Harrison broke it first. Evelyn, I think it's time we make this official. Our legal department will handle it from here. You've done enough. But I wasn't finished. Actually, sir, I said, voice firm but steady, there's one more thing I think you'll want to see. I clicked to the next slide. An email draft addressed to the Business Chronicle, one of the country's most respected financial news outlets. Subject line: exclusive, Harrison and Company. CEOs fall, inside the fraud and the woman who exposed him. The board members exchanged glances. Mr. Harrison frowned slightly. You're going to the press? I met his gaze. This isn't just about me anymore. This company deserves transparency. And the world deserves to know that corruption was stopped from the inside, by integrity, not by silence. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Do what you have to do, Evelyn. Just be careful. By that evening, the story broke. Headlines everywhere screamed, exclusive, former CEO of Harrison and Company, caught in double fraud scheme. Evidence reveals second attempt to frame ex-wife. The article went viral in hours. Every major outlet picked it up. The story included screenshots, timestamps, and the footage I'd given them. Daniel typing away at his computer, creating fake documents, muttering angrily to himself. The image was damning. And then the final nail in his coffin. The police statement confirming that Daniel Carter was officially under criminal investigation for fraud, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice. By the next morning, my phone was exploding with messages. Some old friends congratulated me. Others from strangers called me the woman who brought a CEO to his knees. But the one message that stood out came from a private number. Daniel, you think you've won? You've ruined me. Evelyn, are you happy now? I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. No, Daniel, I'm not happy you're ruined. I'm happy I'm finally free. Later that day, I was called to meet with the company's legal team. They handed me a letter and offered MR. Harrison wanted to make my position permanent, not just as a committee member, but as Chief Financial Integrity Officer, a newly created role designed to ensure no one like Daniel could ever exploit the company again. I smiled as I read it. The very company Daniel had tried to use to destroy me was now trusting me to protect it. Karma didn't just knock. It walked in and sat at the head of the table. That night, as I left the building, the city lights shimmered around me. I took a deep breath, the kind that comes only after surviving a storm. I thought about the woman I was months ago, fragile, humiliated, scared. And the woman I was now, calm, strong, unbreakable. Daniel had tried to make me small, but in doing so, he made me unstoppable. Yet, deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Men like Daniel don't disappear quietly. And though his career was over, his obsession with me was far from gone. Because as I turned the corner that night, I caught sight of a shadow near my car, tall, still, watching. And when I looked closer, it vanished. The first time I noticed a shadow, I thought I was imagining it. It was late, the street empty except for the faint hum of traffic a few blocks away. The faint scent of rain lingered in the air. I stood beside my car, my keys trembling in my hand. Someone had been there. I could feel it, that eerie, prickling instinct that makes your skin crawl before your mind can catch up. But when I turned around, nothing. Just the echo of my heels and the flicker of a dying streetlight. Still, something in my gut whispered, "He's watching." The next morning, I brushed it off. Maybe I was paranoid. After all, Daniel had just been arrested. He couldn't possibly. But by midday, a small white envelope appeared on my office desk. No postage, no name, Just a single word scribbled across the front in handwriting I knew all too well. Remember. My stomach turned cold. Inside, a photo, one taken at the company party. The night everything started. It showed me sitting on the floor in that torn dress, tears streaking my face, and Daniel standing over me with that smirk. I had destroyed that image months ago. Only one person could have had the original. I went straight to the police. Detective Morris, the officer handling Daniel's fraud case, listened quietly as I placed a photo on his desk. Could he have sent this from jail? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Morris frowned. Carter was released on bail yesterday morning. His lawyer argued that since the fraud charges are still pending, he's not a flight risk. I froze. He's out. Temporarily, the detective said, but if he's harassing you, we can add a restraining order to the case. I nodded, trying to hide the tremor in my hands. A restraining order, as if a piece of paper could stop Daniel Carter. That evening, I installed new locks, added a security system, and called my friend Leah to stay over. Leah had been my rock through everything. You know he's obsessed, she said, pacing my living room. The humiliation you gave him, he can't handle it. Men like Daniel need control. I sighed, staring out the window at the flickering streetlights. He's not going to get it again. But even as I said it, a soft ping came from my phone. A new message. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. It was a photo. My front door. Taken from outside. Just a few minutes ago. Below it, a message. You can change your locks, Evelyn. But you can't change what you did to me. Leah grabbed the phone. Her face going pale. We need to call the police right now. I nodded. But as I reached the phone, I noticed something strange in the reflection of the window. Across the street, a dark SUV sat parked. Engine running, headlights off. The silhouette of a man inside. Still, watching. My heart thundered. He's here. Leah's voice shook. Evelyn, move away from the window. I stepped back slowly, every breath short and sharp. And then, as if sensing he'd been spotted, the SUV's headlights flashed once. Then it sped off into the night. The next morning, the police came, took my statement, and promised to patrol the area. But deep down, I knew what they were thinking. No proof it was him. No direct threat. They didn't understand. Daniel didn't need to threaten me. His silence was a threat. Over the next few days, it escalated. I'd find small things move around my house. A vase slightly turned. A photo frame shifted. A faint smell of his cologne in the hallway. And then, the most chilling one. A single rose left on my pillow while I was in the shower. No sound. No forced entry. Just that flower, blood red, freshly cut. My hand shook as I picked it up, the petals damp from the steam. There was a note tucked underneath. You look beautiful tonight, I ruined you. But you look even better tonight, I take it all back. That was the night I stopped being afraid and started preparing. Daniel thought I was still the same woman he'd humiliated, fragile, broken, trembling. But he had no idea that I had learned from him. So I began setting traps. Cameras, voice recorders, silent alerts linked to the security app. I was done being hunted. If Daniel wanted to play his game again, this time, I was going to make sure he lost everything. But I didn't know that someone else had started watching him too. Someone who wanted him destroyed. Not just for what he did to me, but for something far darker buried in his past. And soon, I discovered that Daniel wasn't just dangerous. He was hiding secrets that could cost both of us our lives. Sleep became a stranger. Every creak, every hum, every flicker of light made my heart race. But one night, at 2:43 a.m., I found something that changed everything. I had been scrolling through my security feed when I noticed a flicker, a figure outside, just by the gate. The man didn't come close this time. He simply slipped something through bars, then vanished into the darkness. I waited until morning, then stepped outside carefully. On the ground lay a brown envelope, thick, worn, and sealed with tape. My name was scrawled across it in rough handwriting. For Evelyn, before it's too late. Inside, there were several printed documents. Some looked like financial reports, others were medical files. But what made my stomach twist was a series of photographs clipped together. Each one showed Daniel, at parties and hotels, shaking hands with men I didn't recognize. But one face appeared over and over again, a gray-haired man with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. At the bottom of one of the pages was a name I hadn't seen in years. Richard Lowell. I froze. Richard was a co-founder of Harrison and Company, the man who had mysteriously retired 3 years before Daniel became CEO. There had been rumors that he left after a financial scandal, but nothing was ever proven. And now, these papers, they showed millions in offshore accounts, signed jointly by Daniel Carter and Richard Lowell. The more I read, the clearer it became. Daniel's fraud wasn't just about greed. It was a cover-up. He and Richard had embezzled millions from Harrison and Company long before I even joined the firm. When the investigation began, Daniel had set me up as a distraction, the perfect scapegoat, while quietly erasing the evidence that linked him and Richard. But someone had kept copies. Someone who wanted me to find them. At the bottom of the envelope, a handwritten note. He's not after revenge, Evelyn. He's after silence. Richard's gone missing. You're next. My fingers went cold. I drove straight to Detective Morris's office the next morning. He listened quietly as I placed the documents on his desk. His eyes widened with every page he flipped through. This, he muttered. This isn't just corporate fraud. This is federal. Whoever gave me those files, I said, knew Daniel would come for me. Morris nodded grimly. And they were right. Carter's been under surveillance since his bail release, but he's gone off the grid. We think he's using aliases and moving between safe houses. I swallowed hard. And Richard Lowell? Officially, Morris said, still retired. Unofficially, no one's seen him in 6 months. That night, Leah came over again, her face pale as she read the note. Evelyn, you need to get out of here, she whispered. If this is true, you're in the middle of something huge. I looked out the window. Across the street, the same black SUV was back. He's not going to stop, I murmured. Not until I make him. Leah frowned. How? I opened my laptop, pulling up the copies I'd made of the documents. By finishing what I started, I'm going to expose him and whoever he's protecting. Over the next few days, I worked in silence, gathering everything. Emails, bank trails, meeting notes, photos, and then, while searching to the metadata of one of Daniel's old drives, I found something buried deep inside a hidden folder, a video file labeled Project L93. When I clicked play, my screen filled with the image of a private lab, white walls, sterile lights, and Daniel standing beside Richard. Richard's voice echoed through the speakers. We'll say the funding went to environmental research. No one will trace the money if it's under the sustainability branch. Daniel replied, and what about the human trials? Richard smirked. They'll never know. The clip ended abruptly. My heart was pounding. Human trials? Funding cover-ups? This wasn't just corporate theft. It was something far darker. I sat frozen for a long time, staring at the paused frame of Daniel's face, calm, confident, and utterly heartless. Then my phone buzzed. A new text from an unknown number. You shouldn't have opened that file, Evelyn. Now it's too late. I jumped from my seat. Every instinct screamed to run. But before I could move, the security camera feed flickered. Static, then darkness. The power went out. And from somewhere outside came the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps on gravel. The power failure through the house into complete silence. Even the hum of the refrigerator stopped, leaving only the wind scratching against the windows. For a moment, I didn't move. The backup battery on my phone glowed faintly, casting a blue light across the paper scattered on my desk. Daniel's files, the evidence. The truth he never wanted anyone to see. Then came the sound again. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Crunching on the gravel outside. I gripped the phone so tightly my fingers went numb. Leah? I whispered. No answer. She'd gone home hours ago. I was alone. I opened the security app. Offline. Every camera feed had gone black at the exact same moment. He'd planned this. He knew my system. He'd probably installed it himself years ago when he wanted to keep us safe. A bitter irony. Now he was a danger was meant to stop. The footsteps stopped outside the front door. Then came a slow, deliberate knock. 3 times. I didn't answer. I barely breathed. Another knock, harder this time. And then his voice, calm and soft through the door. "Evelyn, we need to talk." My heart slammed against my ribs. I stepped back, clutching the phone like a weapon. He shouldn't have been able to find me. I'd moved, changed numbers, changed locks. But he was Daniel. He always found a way. I tried calling Detective Morris, but the signal was gone. Static hissed in my ear. The only light came from a hallway. Faint moonlight slipping through the blinds, stretching across the floor like silver ribbons. Another sound. This time, the creak of the back door. He wasn't knocking anymore. He was inside. I moved silently into the kitchen, keeping low, my mind racing. I knew every inch of this house, every exit, every shadow. I grabbed the small keychain alarm Leah had given me. It wasn't much, just a piercing siren when activated, but sometimes noise is all you need to break control. And Daniel's control had always been built on silence. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. He was closer now. I could hear the slow rhythm of his breathing, the sound that used to lull me to sleep. Now the sound of a predator. "You took everything from me, Evelyn." His voice drifted through the dark. "My company, my reputation, my life, but you can fix it. You owe me that." I closed my eyes, pressing my back against the wall, forcing myself to breathe evenly. He wanted me to answer. He wanted to hear fear. I stayed silent. The beam of a flashlight swept across the floor. I could see the shadow of his shoes near the living room door. When the light turned away, I slipped toward the hallway. Slow, steady steps, not daring to make a sound. I reached the study door. My laptop was still open, the files displayed on the screen. An idea sparked. If I couldn't reach the police, maybe I could reach him. My laptop was synced to cloud storage, and every time a file was opened or moved, a notification went to the law firm's central system. So I dragged the entire folder, Project L93, into a public drive and sent a single email to the newsroom that had broken a fraud story months ago. Subject: Urgent, Harrison and Company. Cover up human trials evidence. I hit send just as Daniel's voice came from behind me. Always the smart one. I spun around. He was standing in the doorway, thinner, paler, but his eyes burned with the same cold arrogance. "Daniel," I said quietly, trying to steady my voice. "It's over. You can't stop what's coming." He smiled, that same cruel, charming smile that had fooled so many. "Oh, Evelyn, you still think you're the hero in this story." I raised the alarm keychain behind my back. My thumb brushed the trigger. He took a slow step forward. "You've ruined everything. But I'll fix it. I'll make it right again." Another step. I pressed the alarm. The shriek of the siren exploded through the house. High, sharp, deafening. Daniel flinched, stumbling back, hands over his ears. I bolted for the front door, yanking it open and running barefoot onto the wet pavement. A neighbor's porch light flicked on. Another window opened. And then sirens. Real ones. Police. When I turned back, Daniel was standing in the doorway, staring at me, not with rage, but something colder, resignation. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He just whispered, "You still don't understand, do you? It's bigger than both of us." Then he stepped back into the shadows as the flashing blue lights filled the street. The police swept through the house within minutes. He was gone, again. No forced entry, no sign of struggle, no fingerprints. Just the smell of his cologne and the open laptop screen. But when Detective Morris called later that night, his tone was different, urgent. "Evelyn," he said, "you need to come to the station. We've traced the files you sent, and there's something you need to see." By the time I reached the precinct, dawn was just breaking over the city. A thin mist clung to the streets. Everything felt half awake, unreal. Detective Morris met me at the door, coffee in one hand, a manila folder in the other. "You didn't just blow open Carter's fraud," he said quietly. You uncovered a national investigation. I stared at him. What are you talking about? He led me into the conference room. On the wall, someone had pinned dozens of photos. Faces, bank statements, property maps. And at the center of it all was a single name written in red marker. Richard Lowell. Morris dropped the folder on the table. Lowell disappeared 6 months ago, but not because he was hiding from the board. He was hiding from a government inquiry. He opened the folder. Inside were photographs of a private research facility, a cluster of small buildings in a remote industrial park. Project L93, he said. It wasn't about sustainability. It was a biomedical trial funded through Harrison and Company as subsidiaries. Illegal experiments using unapproved compounds. The money trail you sent matched the funding. I felt my stomach twist. And Daniel knew? He helped launder the money, Morris said. But here's the thing. Lowell was the architect. Carter was the front man. When the feds started sniffing around, Lowell vanished. Everyone assumed Carter, turned him in. But he flipped another photo onto the table. It was grainy, taken from a highway camera 3 nights ago. 2 men in a car. One of them was Daniel. The other was Richard Lowell. I blinked. That's impossible. He's supposed to be missing. Morris shook his head. Not missing. Protected. There's evidence they made a deal. Fake the disappearance. Move assets offshore. Start fresh under new identities. But something went wrong. The files you released destroyed their immunity. Now Lowell's gone dark again, and Carter, he's running out of allies. I sat down, the world spinning. So, when Daniel said it was bigger than us, he wasn't lying, Morris finished. If Lowell's alive, he'll want every trace of this gone, including you. I left the station with the folder clutched in my hands. Outside, the city was waking up, people buying coffee, buses rumbling by, life going on as if none of this existed. But to me, every sound felt amplified, every movement suspicious. On the top page of the folder was a list of addresses, locations tied to Project L93 funding. One of them made my breath catch. Bridgeview Storage Unit, number 47, registered under Evelyn Carter. My name, my signature. I had never heard of it. That afternoon, I drove there alone. The facility sat at the edge of the city, rows of identical metal doors stretching under the gray sky. The clerk checked my ID, then handed me the key without question. Been a while since you renewed that one, he said. I forced a smile. Yeah, it has. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with dust. Stacks of boxes lined the walls. Old company archives, photos, a few sealed crates labeled archive property. L93. When I cracked one open, files spilled out, laboratory reports, consent forms, photographs of volunteers. My name was on several of the authorization letters. Forged. Daniel had used my credentials to sign off on everything. And tucked between the papers, a single envelope marked, in case she finds out. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note, Daniel's handwriting again. Evelyn, if you're reading this, then Lowell knows you have the files. Don't trust anyone from the board or the police. They're compromised. Get to the safe house at Red Haven Pier. I can prove what really happened in Project L93. You were never supposed to be part of it. D. I sank onto the cold floor, the paper trembling in my hand. For months I'd seen Daniel as the villain, the abuser, the liar, the fraud. But what if the story wasn't that simple anymore? A knock echoed within the storage row, soft, cautious. Miss Carter? A man's voice called. Detective Morris sent me to bring you in. Says it's urgent. I froze. Morris hadn't mentioned sending anyone. Through the narrow window in the door, I saw the glint of sunlight off something metallic. Maybe a badge. Or maybe a gun. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number again. Don't open that door, Evelyn. He's not with Morris. Run. The moment I read the message, the air in the storage unit turned heavy. My mind raced. If that man outside wasn't police, then someone else knew where I was, and they wanted the files. I shoved Daniel's note into my pocket, grabbed the folder of Project L, 93 documents, and slipped out the back emergency exit. The metal door groaned, echoing through the corridor. The footsteps that had been steady a moment ago stopped. Then they quickened. I didn't look back. I just ran. The streets outside Bridgeview were half empty. Warehouses stretching along the waterfront. A bus roared past, its exhaust swallowing the sound of my shoes on the pavement. I ducked behind a stack of shipping crates just as a black sedan rolled slowly past the gate. The man from the storage facility was inside, and he wasn't alone. A second figure sat beside him, wearing a cap pulled low, face hidden. They weren't police. They were looking for me. I waited until the car turned the corner, then headed toward Red Haven Pier, the location Daniel had mentioned. It sat on the far edge of the industrial district, a stretch of abandoned docks and warehouses long since forgotten. Every step felt wrong, but curiosity drove me forward. What could Daniel possibly have that would make him risk contacting me again? When I reached the pier, the sky had turned overcast, the sea dull and restless. The old boathouses leaned toward the water, their windows boarded up. A small, rusted shack stood at the end of the dock, a faint light glowing from inside. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed that this could be another trap. But then my phone buzzed again. "Daniel, you made it. Come inside." Quickly, I swallowed hard, stepped onto the dock, and pushed the door open. Inside, the shack smelled of salt and oil. A single lantern hung from the ceiling, casting long shadows across the room. And there he was, Daniel. He looked nothing like the man who used to stride into boardrooms with perfect confidence. His face was hollow, eyes ringed with exhaustion, clothes worn. When he saw me, he raised his hand slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you, Evelyn. I know how it looks, but please, listen first. I didn't lower my guard. You broke into my house. You terrified me. You forged documents in my name. Give me one reason I should trust a word you say." He nodded, as if expecting it. "Because Richard Lowell isn't done. He's using the project again, off the grid. And you're still listed as the original authorizing officer. If he's exposed, he'll make sure you take the fall." He reached for a small lockbox on the table and opened it. Inside were several flash drives and a handful of printed photos. One photo made my breath catch. It showed a row of hospital beds, patients connected to machines, faces blurred, all labeled L93 clinical continuation. The date stamp was from just 2 weeks ago. "They moved the operation overseas," Daniel said quietly. "Lowell paid people to keep it going. When I realized what he was doing, I tried to pull out. That's when he decided I was expendable. You were supposed to be the distraction again. The headline." My voice trembled. "You're saying you were trying to protect me?" He looked at me for a long moment. "I'm saying I was trying to fix what I broke." Before I could answer, headlights flashed through the cracks in the boards, bright, sweeping across the walls. Daniel stiffened. "They found us." I turned to the window. A convoy of dark SUVs rolled onto the pier, engines humming, doors opening in unison. Men in plain clothes stepped out, their movements precise, too professional to be random. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. "They're not police, Evelyn. There's men." He grabbed the lockbox and pressed it into my hands. "Take this and go out the back. There's a maintenance ladder that leads to the lower docks. Follow the service tunnel to the next pier. Don't stop. Don't look back." "And you?" I asked. Someone has to slow them down. Before I could argue, the front door splintered. Daniel shoved me toward the back exit, just as the shack flooded with flashlight beams. "Daniel Carter!" A voice shouted. "Put your hands where we can see them." I slipped through the narrow opening, heart hammering. Behind me came the thud of boots, shouts, and the dull crack of something heavy hitting wood. Then silence. I ran along the underside of the pier, waves crashing below. The lockbox was heavy against my chest, the metal freezing against my palms. When I reached the service tunnel, I turned back once, just in time to see the shack collapse into flames. The pier glowed orange against the night sky, smoke curling into the mist. Daniel was gone. Hours later, I sat in the dim corner of a 24-hour diner miles away, still clutching the lockbox. My reflection in the window looked like someone else entirely, Someone older, harder, alive only because of a man I'd once sworn to hate. When I finally opened the box, there was a single note taped to the top flash drive. For the truth, not revenge. Perfect. Here's part 12, one of the most intense and revealing parts of the story. This is where the truth finally begins to unfold, and Evelyn realizes everything she thought she knew about her husband, his mistress, and even her own role in the company was only the surface of something much darker. The lockbox sat in front of me on the diner table, its dull metal sides glinting under the fluorescent light. Outside, dawn crept across the horizon, smearing pale gold across the wet asphalt. The waitress kept glancing my way, probably wondering why a disheveled woman with bruised arms and tear-streaked cheeks hadn't moved for hours. But I couldn't, not until I knew everything. With trembling hands, I plugged one of the flash drives into my laptop. A folder blinked open on the screen. Inside were dozens of encrypted files, labeled with sterile precision. Subject logs, test reports, patient transfers, Project L93 continuation. My stomach turned. I clicked on the first document. Confidential report, Project L93. Lead supervisor, Dr. Richard Lowell. Funding partner, Carter Holdings Limited. Objective, behavioral modification via neurochemical conditioning for enhanced compliance in workforce populations. It took me a second to grasp what I was reading. Then it hit me. They weren't testing medical cures. They were testing control. Lowell hadn't been researching a treatment for trauma or stress, as he claimed. He was building a system, a method to reprogram human behavior. And Daniel's company had bankrolled it. I scrolled through photos of subjects strapped to hospital beds, their expressions blank. Some of the data logs even bore my signature at the bottom, forged but convincing. Every report ended with the same line. Subject reached compliance threshold. Transfer approved. Transfer to where? I opened a video file. The screen flickered, then filled with an image of a dim laboratory. Dr. Lowell stood in front of a glass chamber, speaking calmly to a group of investors. Behind the glass, a woman sat motionless, her eyes distant, her voice monotone. Subject 9B has successfully undergone 3 cycles, Lowell said. She no longer recognizes prior emotional triggers. Memory suppression achieved. My breath caught in my throat. The woman's face was bruised and horribly familiar. It was Tessa, Daniel's mistress. The room around me blurred. I pressed pause, staring at her face on the frozen frame. Tessa wasn't just his affair. She was one of the test subjects. No wonder Daniel had looked haunted. No wonder he'd broken ties with Lowell. He hadn't been covering for her. He'd been trying to save her. I clicked through more files, my pulse pounding. Each video, each report, painted the same horrifying picture. People coerced into treatment programs that stripped them of emotion, of memory, of will. And the deeper I dug, the more I realized something else. I'd been listed as the original creator of the research proposal. My credentials, my name, my grant application number. It was a complete fabrication. Lowell had used my career, my clean reputation, as a shield for his corruption. Then, tucked inside one last folder, I found a text document named simply, "For Evelyn from Daniel." My hands shook as I opened it. Evelyn, I don't expect forgiveness. Not after everything I did. But you deserve to know why I stayed silent all those years. Lowell blackmailed me into funding his work. He had proof of falsified deals from the early days of my company. Mistakes I made when we were just trying to survive. When I tried to pull out, he threatened to expose me and destroy the company. And you with it, since your department handled the legal filings. I thought I could protect you by cooperating. I thought if I took the blame, you'd be safe. But I became part of his machine. And by the time I realized what he was doing to Tessa, it was too late. The night of the party, I was drunk, angry, desperate to make Lowell think I was still loyal. I said things that haunt me. I did things I can never take back. But believe me, Evelyn, he's still out there, and he knows you have the files now. If you want to end this, find the offshore site labeled Revos 93. It's where the real project lives. Daniel. My vision blurred as tears welled up. The man I thought was my greatest enemy had been trying, in his own broken way, to save me. But Lowell had used both of us like pawns. And now he was coming. I looked down at the folder. The flash drives, Daniel's note. A cold determination began to settle where my fear had lived. He wanted me silenced. He wanted me erased. But not this time. I closed the laptop, tossed some cash onto the counter, and stepped into the cold morning air. The truth wasn't just in the files. It was proof, and I knew exactly where to take it. Perfect. Here's the grand finale. This is part 13, the final and most powerful chapter, where Evelyn finally rises, exposes everything, and turns humiliation into a moment of triumph that leaves everyone, including her husband's mistress, the executives, and even Richard Lowell, begging for mercy. By the time I reached the company headquarters, the city was already awake. Morning sunlight gleamed against the glass walls of Carter Holdings, the same building where I'd once walked proudly beside my husband, and where just months ago, he'd humiliated me in front of everyone. Now I was walking back through those same doors. Only this time, I wasn't the trembling wife everyone pitied. I was the storm they never saw coming. The lobby buzzed with chatter as employees hurried past, oblivious. But when they saw me, disheveled hair pulled back, briefcase in hand, eyes cold as steel, whispers rippled through the hall. Security tried to stop me at the elevator. I handed them an envelope. "Deliver this to the boardroom in 5 minutes," I said, my voice calm. "Then stay out of my way." Inside the envelope were USB copies of every Project L93 file, along with a letter addressed to the press. When the elevator doors opened to the top floor, the sight that greeted me nearly made me laugh. The boardroom was filled, executive, investors, media representatives, even the company's PR director. And at the center of it all sat Richard Lowell, smug, polished, pretending he still controlled everything. Tessa sat 2 seats away, pale and distant, like someone trying to remember who she was. Lowell looked up when I entered. "Evelyn Carter," he said smoothly. "To what do we owe this dramatic entrance?" I set my briefcase on the table, clicked it open, and slid a laptop across the polished wood. "To the truth," I said, "and to justice." 1 tap. That's all it took. The projector flickered to life, filling the room with footage. The same files I'd seen in the diner. The same horror. Patient after patient. Stripped of emotion. Forced into compliance. Tessa's face flashed across the screen, before and after. Gasps filled the room. Chairs scraped back. Lowell shot to his feet. "Turn that off," he barked. "That footage is classified." "It's criminal," I snapped back. "And it's already been sent to 3 national news outlets, along with a full list of board members who funded it." A stunned silence fell. Every eye turned toward him. Then came the final blow. I opened a live video feed, a news broadcast already in progress. Reporters stood outside the building, holding copies of the leaked documents. Across the screen scrolled the words, "Carter Holdings and Lowell Biomedical exposed for illegal human experimentation." Lowell's face was drained of color. He lunged toward me. "You think you won? You have no idea who you're dealing with." I stepped back, my voice low and steady. "Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A man who thought power meant protection. But you forgot one thing, Richard. Even monsters bleed when the world is watching." Security burst in, real police this time, not as hired men. They moved past me and surrounded Lowell as he shouted threats that no one believed anymore. Tessa began to cry quietly, whispering my name. She didn't remember everything, but something in her eyes, that flicker of recognition, told me she was beginning to wake up from whatever hell he'd trapped her in. And then, through the chaos, I saw him. Daniel, alive, bruised, bandaged, but standing. The entire room froze as he stepped forward, flanked by 2 federal agents. "It's over, Richard," he said. "We both know what you did." Lowell's voice broke into rage. "You were supposed to be dead." Daniel gave a bitter smile. "You taught me how to disappear, remember?" The agents closed in. Lowell fought, cursed, but it was useless. He was dragged from the room, his voice echoing down the hall. When it was finally quiet, Daniel turned to me, his eyes once sharp and arrogant, now held something softer, almost broken. "You didn't have to save me," he murmured. I didn't," I said. "I saved the truth." But when he reached out, I didn't pull away. For a long time, neither of us spoke. There were no apologies strong enough, no explanations clean enough to fix what we'd been through. But there was closure. Weeks later, the story dominated every headline. Lowell was indicted. The company restructured under government oversight. Tessa entered a recovery program, slowly piecing herself together. And me? I walked away. Not as Mrs. Carter, not as a victim, but as a survivor who burned her silence to light the world on fire. The same people who once whispered behind my back at that party, the same ones who laughed when my husband humiliated me, now lower their eyes when I passed. Because they finally understood something. When you break a woman who has nothing left to lose, you teach her how to become unstoppable. And that's how the woman they mocked at the company party, the one who was kicked, humiliated, and silenced, became the one who made every single one of them beg for mercy.